Hey YouTube, Vermont Prepper here, continuing again with my series on prepper philosophy. And today I wanted to go over some thoughts about prepping and the prepper mindset and society stigma. This is vermontprepper.com right here. I started building that out a while ago. I got to put some content in it, but I have some stuff. Anyway, if you take a look at the About Us page, I have on there, it kind of captures my mindset, the essence of my mindset about prepping. And I so call it the 10 Commandments about prepping. And I want to just go over a few. The first thing I want to mention, and I believe a lot of preppers might agree, is that your best asset is yourself, not the survival gadgets, weapons, or other preps that you might have. You know, in my view, these things are tools, not assets. I'm sort of getting ahead of myself here, but yourself being the best asset means that you need to take care of yourself, not only physically and mentally, but you should never be comfortable about your knowledge base. I had a chemistry teacher tell me something a long time ago that kind of stuck, and it was that the brain is a muscle, and it seems pretty obvious, right? You need to continually work it out, or it's going to become flabby and weak. So I kind of live by this rule, or so-called rule, and it's why I'm in constant research or studying something. I've already mapped out some things I want to do next, and I've started it already kind of, and I started taking some FEMA classes, which, by the way, you can do free online. It's pretty informative. And the reason why I do that is so I can understand how the government would respond during a crisis. I may even become part of a certified emergency response team if I can figure out time for it. But that's a sort of a medium-term goal of mine, to become involved in CERT. The second thing I want to go over, and it kind of leads me into something here, and I'm going to generalize, but my sense is that the prepper community generally distrusts the government, and some actually prep because they feel the government is either going to turn on them or will not be able to help them if a SHTF scenario really happens. And maybe my perspective is tainted from having worked in the government for 8 years, but I could tell you that not everyone in the government is evil. Yes, there are differences, just like anywhere within the government. You have Democrats, you have Republicans, you have independents, and you even have some socialists now. And I agree that there are a fair share of crooked government officials, but the same can go for private industry as well. It's not only limited to the government. So with all of that said, I can tell you that most government employees don't get into the government for a paycheck. They're not going to get rich. They do it to make an impact. And that's a normal government employee. I'm not talking about the senators who end up having speaking engagements and things like that. I'm talking the normal federal employee going into the government, say the State Department or wherever. They're not going to become rich right off. Maybe they'll have a nice little retirement, they'll live comfortably, but rich, highly doubtful. I'm sure there'll be, exceptions to that, but highly doubtful. At least that was my experience, but I'm sure others will think differently. Also, on the flip side here, having been through a number of hurricanes, I was lucky to have government assistance. I lived down in Miami during some major hurricanes, and the government was there during the aftermath of some of these hurricanes. And maybe I'm in a minority, but I don't believe that the government is going to turn on its people. And if it did, you're not going to be able to defend yourselves with weapons available to the general public. So I choose to embrace what the government offers. I do, however, believe that we should have checks and balances that we have in place with congressional oversight and government watchdogs. I'm not blind to government overreach, but I choose to not really prep for a government takeover because I believe that's highly unlikely. And you're going to see, for instance, let's say the government has martial law and the military has to enforce, rule of law. Eventually, you're going to have even the military personnel wanting to go back to help their families, and they're going to be very hesitant to start shooting on the public. So again, maybe I'm a little naive in that sense, but it's just through my experience that I feel that way. And I'd appreciate comments on that. A third thing I want to discuss is how I would respond for help for others that have less than I do during an SHTF scenario. And in my view, my decision to help would be based on having the ability to help while making sure that it's secure to do so. And that means that I really don't want to be blind that someone might be faking the need for help just to see what you have so they can forcibly take it. I get it. I think my reason is that I believe most scenarios will not last more than 60 days. So I'd be willing to help people in true need unless I believe that we're in it for the long haul and that there was a need for extreme rationing. And if you have the mindset to help, it's going to pay you major karma dividends in the future, especially when things start to get back to normal. The next thing I want to discuss is the concept of the Greyman, and I call it a quest for knowledge. I know people have different views on the Greyman concept, and I'm just going to give you my view, which is neither right or wrong. It's just my view, so I'm not going to really get into debates about it. I would say that there's a general consensus that the Greyman is able to act and accomplish things under the radar in a tough environment. That means that they're not going to stand out in the crowd. They won't normally be dressed in the so-called tactical clothing, all black, fatigues, etc. They assume their environment much like a chameleon. It doesn't only go for apparel, but also in the type of car they drive. And I would say I have both an apocalypse truck for times that call for it, actually two of them, as well as the ultimate Greyman vehicle. And the two trucks I have are Ford F-150, kind of tricked out, and I also have a military Cuck V Blazer M1009, for those of you familiar with it. And I have some videos about it on YouTube if you want to check it out. It's pretty cool. But I'm going to talk about my gold 1993 Camry that nobody gives a second look. It doesn't shine. It has dents, scratches, scuffs, missing a hubcap. Actually, I took all the hubcaps off. This video here on my YouTube channel, you can see that it still has the hubcaps, but I've since taken them off. It actually looks better because there was only 3 of them to begin with. But it's pretty quiet and it's mechanically sound. It actually gets like 30 miles a gallon on the highway. Its trunk, I have all the necessary survival items for short-term excursions, maybe supply runs or something similar. So, yeah, a Greyman does fall under the radar, and this would really help do that. But I think that the Greyman is really something much more than just having the ability to fall under the radar. I really think that a Greyman should be pretty well-rounded in terms of skills, and maybe actually an expert in 1 or 2 skills. And I go on YouTube a lot for a source of knowledge. I mean, there's a lot of smart people on there who are willing to document what they do to the point where I feel the knowledge is transferable. And I would say my expertise lies with drones and other potential prepping capabilities, as well as having a good base knowledge on self-defense. But besides being in a profession that has nothing to do with prepping, I also know some about communications. I also know some things about computers, networking, web design, e-commerce. If I had to, I could probably fly a single-engine plane, and I have a good knowledge in auto mechanics, as well as having built a solar battery and ammo box, as well as a bigger box of solar power. And I'm also ready to start learning how to reload. And reloading is could be a valuable and dangerous at the same time skill when during a SHTF scenario. I have all the equipment to begin it. I just haven't started doing it. It's a fairly expensive hobby, but the knowledge to be gained is invaluable in terms of prepping. And the reason why I say it's dangerous, it's kind of in the sense that you really need to think about security in SHTF environment if you're looking as into reloading as possible service to people. People are going to need bullets. I think ammo will be a form of currency, so that's why you really don't see weapons go down in value so much. They're always keep their value if you maintain them, as well as ammo. It's never going to be out of style. As long as the Second Amendment is in place, you're always going to be you're going to be rich if you have ammo. Those who have the most ammo, you can pretty much trade for anything. I mean, there's some other things as well, like alcohol and tobacco and medicine, medical equipment and things, but ammo is going to be I think the gold standard in a prolonged SHTF environment. Hopefully it'll never come to that. Again, I feel that most things will end in 60 days, but again, maybe I'm naive. And lastly, I think a Greyman really needs to know when to come out of the shadows and act. You have to have that understanding of when you really need to take action. So, and the action should be decisive. Anyways, I hope you like this video, and feel free to give me some comments. I'm always interested in alternative views. So please feel free to like, comment, or subscribe, and I'll be posting some more things. I think maybe the next thing I'm going to do is using drones as a prepper. I wrote an article in the Prepper Journal about it, and I'll probably go over that too. All right, so Vermont Prepper out, and as always, keep prepping.